Welcome to the Cozy Storytime, your peaceful space to unwind and relax. Before we start, make sure to subscribe and like the video for more cozy stories every night. So, where are you watching from and what are you doing right now? I hope you enjoy hearing this story. Now, take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's drift into a peaceful slumber together. This time I will tell you about Aladdin and the magic lamp. Let's get started. Aladdin, a young boy living in a small village, had no memory of his father. His mother, a hard-working woman, struggled every day to make ends meet. They lived in a small, modest house, a far cry from the grand palaces and homes of the rich. Their life was full of hardship, but Aladdin's mother loved him dearly, and despite their poverty, she made sure he was cared for, often sacrificing her own needs to ensure that he was fed and clothed. The village they lived in was a typical settlement in an unnamed part of a vast desert. It had narrow streets, dusty roads, and buildings made of mud bricks and stone, with small windows barely allowing the warmth of the sun to penetrate the interiors. The villagers lived simple lives. Men worked as laborers, traders, or farmers, while women tended to the home and children. Yet, the air was always filled with the scent of spices and fresh bread from the marketplace. Despite their simple existence, the village had a community of people who looked out for one another, sharing whatever little they had. Aladdin's mother, though poor, was known for her kind heart and strong spirit. She worked as a seamstress, using the small skills she had learned as a young woman to make clothes for the townspeople. Her work wasn't enough to bring in much money, but she would often take whatever she could get, whether it was a loaf of bread, a handful of rice, or some fruit from the market. This was their life, a humble, yet peaceful existence. Aladdin, on the other hand, was a spirited and curious young boy. He was known throughout the village for his adventurous spirit, constantly running about and exploring the streets and fields, dreaming of something bigger than what his life could offer. His dreams often took him to the edges of the village, where he would sit and stare at the horizon, imagining a life of wealth, freedom, and adventure. He would often fantasize about becoming a great prince or a renowned merchant, but his reality was far different. He had no education, no special skills, and no connections to the higher echelons of society. Despite the lack of material wealth, Aladdin's heart was pure, and he had a natural charisma that drew people to him. He was charming, resourceful, and had a sharp wit that often helped him navigate through the various challenges of his daily life. However, this wit sometimes led him into trouble. He had a tendency to ignore the rules of the village and was often found playing pranks or finding shortcuts that didn't always work out in his favor. Despite these small troubles, his mother loved him dearly and saw the goodness in him even when others criticized his wild ways. The bond between Aladdin and his mother was unbreakable. They were each other's world, and while they had little in terms of material possessions, they shared a deep love and understanding. His mother often reminded him that happiness was not measured by the gold one could collect, but by the love and kindness that they gave to others. These words of wisdom stuck with Aladdin throughout his life, even though, in his youthful exuberance, he sometimes found it hard to grasp their full meaning. Aladdin's mother's health, however, began to decline. She grew weak from the constant labor of making clothes, sewing for hours in the heat, and doing everything she could to keep their small home running. At times, she had to rest in bed for days on end, her frailty evident in the way she moved and the deep circles under her eyes. Aladdin, though young, could see the toll it was taking on her. There were days when he would wake up early to go to the market and bring back whatever he could, small items that might help ease her suffering, like herbs for her sickness or food to feed her and himself. As much as Aladdin wanted to do more for his mother, he felt trapped by his circumstances. He had no formal education, no mentor to guide him, and no wealth to rely on. What he did have, however, was an innate sense of adventure, a boldness that pushed him to do things that most children in the village would never dare. It was this boldness that led him to explore the outskirts of the village, where he would often wander for hours, completely oblivious to the time passing by. One day, while walking down a narrow alley, Aladdin stumbled upon a man who had fallen to the ground, seemingly in pain. The man was dressed in fine clothes and had an air of mystery about him. Aladdin, being the curious and caring boy he was, immediately rushed to his aid. He helped the man to his feet, offering him water and asking if he was all right. The man, despite his initial surprise, accepted Aladdin's help, thanking him for his kindness. "Thank you, my boy," the man said, looking into Aladdin's eyes with a glimmer of admiration. "You have a good heart. Not many would have stopped to help a stranger like I did." Aladdin smiled shyly, but there was something in the way the man looked at him that made him feel important, special even. The man introduced himself as someone who traveled across the land, visiting villages and towns, offering his help to those in need. Aladdin listened intently, drawn to the man's words, imagining himself one day traveling the world just as the man did. As the conversation went on, the man spoke about distant lands and the treasures they held, painting vivid pictures of places Aladdin had only dreamed about. "I'm not sure if you understand, boy," the man said with a smile, "but you are destined for something much greater than this village. You have the heart and the courage to do what others only dream of. Keep your spirit, and you will find the way." As Aladdin listened to the man, he felt a stirring inside him. For the first time, someone had seen something in him that he hadn't yet seen in himself. It was a fleeting moment, but the words stayed with him long after the man had disappeared from sight. In the back of his mind, Aladdin began to wonder if his life could be different. Could he really escape the confines of this village and find his destiny elsewhere? Could there be a life waiting for him that was full of the adventure, wealth, and honor he had always dreamed of? That night, after helping his mother to bed and ensuring she had everything she needed, Aladdin lay awake, staring up at the ceiling of their small house. The moonlight filtered through the cracks in the walls, casting a soft glow across the room. Aladdin thought about the stranger's words, and for the first time in his life, he felt a sense of hope. Maybe he was meant for something more. Maybe there was a way for him to change the course of his life. The next morning, Aladdin woke with a renewed sense of purpose. As he went about his usual chores, he found himself thinking more and more about the adventure that lay beyond the village. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change. But how? What could he possibly do to take the first step? And so, Aladdin's journey began, not with grand plans or riches, but with a heart full of dreams and a desire to find his place in the world. Little did he know, his path would soon cross with someone who would change his life forever, a path that would lead him to unimaginable wealth, magic, and love. Aladdin's life, though simple, had been marked by his dreams and desire for something more. He often thought of the kind stranger he had helped a few days earlier, and his words lingered in his mind. It felt as though the universe had somehow sent him a message. He wasn't meant to live in this humble village forever. He was meant for something greater. Yet, Despite these thoughts of adventure, Aladdin still had no clear path to change his destiny. It was during this time of uncertainty that another mysterious figure entered his life, a sorcerer, cloaked in a dark robe, who would set events in motion that would change Aladdin's life forever. One afternoon, while Aladdin was walking through the market, doing his usual errands, he was approached by a man whose appearance immediately caught his attention. The man had a tall, imposing figure, with sharp eyes that gleamed with intelligence and a presence that exuded authority. His dark robes and mysterious aura made him seem out of place among the humble villagers. He moved through the market with a quiet confidence, his gaze sweeping over the people around him as if he were searching for someone. The sorcerer's eyes landed on Aladdin. There was a peculiar sense of recognition in the way he looked at the young boy, as if he had been expecting him. With a calm and deliberate voice, the sorcerer addressed Aladdin. "You, young man," the sorcerer began, "you are the one I've been looking for." Aladdin, startled by the sudden attention, took a step back. He had no idea who this man was, but there was something compelling about him. He hesitated for a moment before responding. "Me? What do you want with me?" Aladdin asked, his curiosity piqued. The sorcerer smiled, his lips curling into a knowing grin. "You have a gift," he said. "I can see it in your eyes, the same fire that burns in the hearts of the greatest men. You are destined for greatness, but you must first prove yourself. You must follow the path I offer you, and your life will change forever." Aladdin felt a flicker of excitement in his chest. The sorcerer's words mirrored the dreams and desires that had been stirring inside him for years. He had always known there was more to his life than the dusty streets of his village, and now here was someone offering him a chance to make that dream a reality. The sorcerer continued, "I am a man of knowledge, someone who knows the secrets of the world and the treasures hidden within it. I can show you the way to a life of wealth and honor. You only need to trust me." Aladdin, though cautious by nature, was intrigued. He had always yearned for something more, something beyond the simple life he had known. The sorcerer spoke with such conviction that it was difficult not to be drawn to his words. But Aladdin, despite his excitement, couldn't shake the feeling that something about the man's demeanor seemed a little too perfect, a little too calculated. Still, he pushed those thoughts aside. "What must I do?" Aladdin asked, his voice tinged with both curiosity and hope. The sorcerer's smile deepened. "You have great potential, young one, but you are not yet ready to seize the life you desire. There is a task I must give you, and if you complete it, I will ensure that your dreams come true." Aladdin was eager to hear more. "What is this task?" he asked. "You must travel to a hidden cave," the sorcerer explained. "Within it lies a treasure, but it is not just any treasure. The cave is filled with dangers and obstacles, but if you retrieve the artifact I seek, you will be rewarded beyond your wildest dreams. The treasure will grant you all that you have ever desired." The sorcerer paused, studying Aladdin's expression closely. "This task will not be easy, but I believe you have the strength and courage to complete it. It is not just about the treasure, it is about your destiny. If you succeed, you will unlock the doors to a life that others can only dream of." Aladdin, though still wary, felt a surge of excitement in his chest. This was the adventure he had longed for, the challenge that would prove to him that he was destined for something greater than the life he had been living. His heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain. "How will I find this cave?" Aladdin asked, his voice tinged with urgency. The sorcerer leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with an almost unnatural intensity. "Follow the path that leads through the desert, beyond the village. There, you will find the cave. But remember, the treasure you seek is hidden within, and only those who are worthy will be able to retrieve it. You must be careful. There are others who would seek this treasure for themselves. And trust no one along the way." Aladdin nodded, feeling both excitement and a hint of fear. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. He knew this task would be difficult, but the rewards that the sorcerer promised were too great to ignore. Without another word, he turned and began walking away from the market, his mind filled with visions of the treasure that awaited him. As he walked, he couldn't help but wonder about the sorcerer's true intentions. Who was this man, really? Why had he chosen Aladdin for this task? The questions lingered in his mind, but his curiosity and the promise of wealth and greatness overshadowed his doubts. Aladdin's journey to the hidden cave began the very next morning. He gathered what little supplies he could, some bread, water, and a few coins that he had saved over time, and set off toward the desert. As he walked further from his village, he felt a sense of freedom he had never experienced before. The endless stretches of sand and the vast sky above seemed to beckon him toward his destiny. He had no idea what awaited him, but the excitement of the unknown filled him with energy and anticipation. The desert stretched on for miles, the sun beating down mercilessly as Aladdin trudged forward. Despite the harsh conditions, he pressed on, determined to reach the cave and prove himself worthy of the treasure that awaited him. His heart raced with every step, each one bringing him closer to the unknown. As the day wore on, the heat grew unbearable, and Aladdin's energy began to wane. But just as he thought he couldn't go any further, he saw something in the distance, an outline of a cave, barely visible against the desert horizon. His heart skipped a beat. He had found it. The cave stood like a dark sentinel amidst the barren landscape, its entrance partially obscured by a rocky outcrop. Aladdin approached cautiously, his senses alert to any danger that might be lurking inside. The sorcerer's warning echoed in his mind, only those who are worthy will be able to retrieve it. Aladdin took a deep breath, steadying himself before entering the cave. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he was determined to see it through. His destiny, he believed, was waiting for him inside. Aladdin stood at the mouth of the cave, feeling the heat of the desert fade into a cool, eerie chill. The moment he stepped into the cave, a strange feeling washed over him, as though the air itself was thick with magic. The walls of the cave were smooth and glistened in the dim light, reflecting the faintest gleam of gold and precious stones embedded in the rock. It was as if the cave itself were alive, breathing in sync with Aladdin's excitement and fear. His heart raced, and every footstep echoed off the cavernous walls, as if the cave was waiting for him to make a mistake. He had traveled far, through the endless expanse of sand and dust, guided only by the sorcerer's cryptic words. Now, standing before the cave, Aladdin could feel the weight of his task. He wasn't just on a simple treasure hunt. This was something deeper. The sorcerer had spoken of destiny, and Aladdin now realized that his journey was not just about finding gold or riches. It was about discovering who he truly was. The cave before him seemed unassuming at first glance, but the deeper he ventured inside, the more he began to notice the glimmering treasures hidden in the dark corners. Piles of gold coins, sparkling jewels, and priceless artifacts lay scattered across the floor. The treasure was incredible, more wealth than Aladdin could ever dream of. But as he stepped forward, Aladdin felt an odd sensation creeping up his spine, an awareness that the treasure itself was not the only thing waiting for him in the depths of the cave. As Aladdin moved deeper, the tunnel opened up into a grand chamber, and there, at the center of the room, stood a pedestal upon which lay a lamp. It was old, weathered, and made of brass, but something about it seemed extraordinary. Despite its worn appearance, the lamp glimmered as if it held a secret far greater than its physical form could reveal. Aladdin instinctively felt drawn to it, as if the lamp itself were calling to him. Before he could approach, a strange voice echoed through the cavern, as though coming from the walls themselves. "Do not touch it," the voice said, low and foreboding. "You are not worthy yet. Only the chosen one may claim the lamp." Aladdin stopped in his tracks, his heart pounding in his chest. The voice seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, making him shiver. He looked around, but there was no sign of anyone else. The chamber was empty, save for the lamp. He stood frozen for a moment, trying to make sense of what was happening. He had come so far, through the heat of the desert and the dangers of the cave, only to be told he was not worthy. But something inside him stirred, a defiance, a need to prove himself. Aladdin took a deep breath and stepped forward, his feet moving without hesitation. He had come this far, and he was determined not to turn back now. The sorcerer had promised him riches and glory, and he knew that this lamp was the key to his future. He reached out and placed his hand on the cold brass of the lamp. The moment his fingers brushed against it, the cave trembled violently, and a blinding flash of light exploded from the lamp. Aladdin recoiled in surprise, stumbling backward, but he quickly regained his footing. The light dimmed, and from within the lamp, a thick smoke began to pour out, swirling and twisting like a living entity. Aladdin watched, wide-eyed, as the smoke began to take shape. The smoke materialized into a towering figure, larger than any man Aladdin had ever seen. The figure was made of swirling mist and shadows, but as it solidified, it became clearer, a giant, muscular being with glowing eyes and an aura of immense power. The figure towered over Aladdin, casting a shadow that seemed to fill the entire cavern. The figure spoke in a deep, rumbling voice that reverberated through the walls of the cave. "You have awakened me, mortal," the figure said, its voice both terrifying and awe-inspiring. "I am the Jinn of the lamp, and you have freed me from my prison." Aladdin stood in stunned silence, unsure of what to do. He had heard of jinns in stories, but he had never imagined he would encounter one himself. The jinn's presence was overwhelming, its power seemed to fill the room, and Aladdin could feel the very air vibrate with energy. He swallowed hard, his mind racing as he tried to process what was happening. I did not mean to disturb you," Aladdin stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. The jinn's glowing eyes fixed on Aladdin, and a deep chuckle rumbled from within its chest. "Disturb me? You have not disturbed me, boy. You have freed me. And now I am bound to you. For you have summoned me with your touch, and now you shall receive what I owe." Aladdin's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean?" he asked, his voice still shaking. The jinn's smile was both menacing and playful, as if it found Aladdin's confusion amusing. "I am the Jinn of the lamp. I grant 3 wishes to the one who frees me. You, young one, are are the one who has set me free, and now you will have your wishes. Anything your heart desires, I shall make it so." Aladdin's mind raced. 3 wishes. He had heard stories about jinns granting wishes, but he never truly believed it could happen to him. His thoughts turned to the things he had always longed for: wealth, status, a life free from poverty and hardship. But something stopped him. He remembered the words of his mother, the advice she had given him countless times when he dreamed of a better life. "Happiness is not measured by gold," she had told him. "It's the love and kindness you share with others that make a life worth living." Aladdin paused. In that moment, standing before the jinn, he realized that perhaps what he truly wanted wasn't wealth or power, but a life full of purpose, love, and respect. The jinn, sensing his hesitation, waited, its eyes glowing expectantly. I don't know what to wish for," Aladdin confessed. The jinn's expression softened, as if it had been expecting this. "It is not for me to tell you what to wish for. The power is yours. Use it wisely." Aladdin closed his eyes and thought deeply, his mind swirling with possibilities. He could wish for riches, to become a powerful prince, to gain everything he had ever dreamed of. But in that moment, he realized that the greatest treasure wasn't gold or jewels, it was the chance to make a difference, to live a life that mattered. "I wish," Aladdin began slowly, "to have the wisdom to choose the right path. To make my life count, not just for myself, but for others as well." The jinn's glowing eyes brightened with approval. "A wise wish, young one. Your path is now set before you. You have chosen a path of wisdom, and with that, your first wish is granted." As the jinn spoke, Aladdin felt a strange warmth fill his chest, a sense of clarity and purpose he had never felt before. The power of the jinn's magic washed over him, and he knew that his journey was just beginning. As the jinn's words resonated in Aladdin's ears, he felt a strange warmth and clarity flood his mind. His wish had been granted, but it wasn't for riches or power. No, Aladdin had wished for something greater: wisdom. And as the jinn's magic worked its way through him, Aladdin felt his perception of the world begin to shift. The weight of his decision settled into his heart as he realized that he had taken the first, crucial step on a path that would shape the rest of his life. The jinn towered over him, a being of immense power, and yet there was something gentle in its expression as it regarded Aladdin. The jinn, who had granted countless wishes to countless masters before, seemed to understand the significance of Aladdin's choice. The magical being's voice, which had once sounded thunderous and intimidating, now seemed softer, almost approving. "You have made a wise decision, Aladdin," the jinn said, its voice reverberating in the cool cavern air. "Many before you have wished for wealth, power, and kingdoms. But your wish for wisdom, is a rare one. It shows that your heart is not blinded by greed. You will now have the knowledge and clarity to make the right choices, no matter where your path leads." Aladdin stood there, still in awe of the jinn's presence, but feeling a newfound sense of purpose. For the first time in his life, he felt truly ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The path that had once seemed uncertain and full of obstacles now appeared clear, like a river carving its way through the desert. "Your wisdom will guide you, but know this, Aladdin," the jinn continued. "I will still grant you 2 more wishes. They are yours to command, but remember, the true power lies in the choices you make. Use your wishes wisely, for they will shape not only your destiny but the lives of others." Aladdin nodded slowly, his heart heavy with the responsibility that came with the jinn's words. He had wished for wisdom because he knew that true greatness came not from wealth or power, but from the way one lived their life and the choices they made. He had the power to change his future now, but how would he use it? "Thank you," Aladdin said, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. "I'll make sure my wishes are used for the right reasons." The jinn's smile deepened, and with a flick of its wrist, the magical being's form began to shift. The glowing mist that had once surrounded it began to dissipate, and the towering figure began to shrink until it was no more than a puff of smoke. "You have made your first wish, and with it, you have set yourself on the path of greatness. When you are ready for your next wish, call upon me. I will be here, waiting," the jinn said, its voice now echoing in Aladdin's mind rather than in the cave. Before Aladdin could speak again, the jinn vanished completely, leaving behind nothing but the empty chamber and the faintest scent of incense. The cave fell silent, and Aladdin was left standing there, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hardly believe what had just happened. The room was still filled with treasures. Gold and jewels glittered in the dim light, but now they seemed distant, almost irrelevant. Aladdin no longer felt the hunger for wealth that had once driven him. The promise of riches was still alluring, but it no longer held the same power over him. He had something more precious now, wisdom. Aladdin looked around the cavern, the weight of his decision settling in. He had been granted the first of his wishes, but there was still so much to learn, so much to experience. The world beyond the cave, with all its mysteries, challenges, and possibilities, awaited him. But the choice was his. How would he move forward? What would he do with the power that had been given to him? He turned and made his way toward the cave's entrance, feeling an odd sense of peace wash over him. The air outside was cool, and the desert stretched out before him, endless and beautiful. The vast expanse of the world seemed to call to him, promising both danger and opportunity. With his newfound wisdom, Aladdin felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. But as he reached the mouth of the cave and looked back one last time, he couldn't help but think of the life he had left behind, his mother, struggling to make ends meet, living in their small, humble home. A deep pang of guilt surged within him. He had always dreamed of a better life, not just for himself, but for his mother as well. And now, with the power of the jinn behind him, he had the chance to fulfill those dreams. "I will return to her," Aladdin murmured to himself, his resolve firming. "I will make her proud. I'll use whatever I have learned and gained to give her the life she deserves." And so, with a heart full of determination, Aladdin set out on the long journey back to the village. The path ahead would be full of unknowns, but he was no longer afraid. He had the wisdom to navigate it, and the desire to use that wisdom for the greater good. The jinn's words echoed in his mind, "The true power lies in the choices you make." Aladdin's journey was far from over. He had made his first wish, and it had changed him. But now, with his mother waiting for him and the world at his feet, Aladdin knew that the true test of his character was still to come. Aladdin's heart was full of determination as he made his way back to the village. The desert wind howled around him, carrying with it the promise of change. His first wish had been granted, and with it, he felt a sense of wisdom and clarity that he had never experienced before. As he walked through the vast, open landscape, his mind raced with possibilities. The power of the jinn's magic still pulsed within him, and he knew that this was only the beginning of something much larger than he had ever imagined. Aladdin's mother was the first thought on his mind. Her life had been one of struggle, and now, with the wisdom he had gained, he was determined to use his newfound knowledge to give her the life she deserved. But there was more to his mission now than simply returning home. The journey ahead was not just about wealth, it was about using the power of his wishes with great care, ensuring that the choices he made were in line with his deepest values. As Aladdin approached the village, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and nervousness. What would his mother think of him now? He had changed, and though the transformation was internal, he wondered if others would notice. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that his life had only just begun. The true test lay in how he would use his future wishes, and the decisions he made from here on would define who he was. The familiar sights of the village soon came into view. The narrow, dusty streets, the simple homes built with care and love, the marketplace where villagers traded goods, it was all just as he remembered. But something was different now. The air felt heavier, as though the weight of destiny rested upon his shoulders. Aladdin quickened his pace, eager to return to his mother. He had not realized how much he had missed her, how much he longed to see her face and tell her about his incredible adventure. He had never expected his life to change so drastically. The gold and jewels in the cave, once so alluring, now seemed distant, like objects of a life he no longer needed. His true desire was not to be rich or powerful, but to make a meaningful difference in the world around him, starting with his mother. As he arrived at the small house they had shared for so long, Aladdin hesitated for a moment before knocking on the door. He wondered if she would recognize him. He was no longer the same boy who had left weeks ago, uncertain and full of dreams. He was someone different now, someone who had experienced magic and wisdom, and who was determined to make those experiences count. His mother answered the door, and for a moment there was only silence. She looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise, her face softening as she took in the sight of him. Aladdin had changed, his posture more confident, his eyes brighter, and his presence exuding a quiet strength. But there was no need for words. His mother knew at once that something extraordinary had happened. "Aladdin, my son," she exclaimed, pulling him into a warm embrace. Her voice trembled with emotion as she held him close. "I cannot believe it. You have returned to me." "I'm home, mother," Aladdin replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here, and I've come to change our lives." His mother pulled back slightly, studying him with concern. "What do you mean, change our lives?" Aladdin smiled and looked around their modest home. He had spent so many years in this simple place, dreaming of a better life. But now, he was ready to take action. "I've learned something, mother. I've learned that true happiness doesn't come from what we have, but from what we do with what we're given." His mother's eyes widened as she listened to him, and a spark of hope flickered in her heart. Aladdin had always been a dreamer, but this time she could hear the conviction in his voice. He wasn't just talking about dreams, he was speaking about real, tangible change. "I've seen the world beyond our village, mother," Aladdin continued, his voice steady and filled with purpose. "I've encountered magic, and with it, I've learned wisdom. I'm not the same boy who left you. I've learned that we can make our own destiny, and I want to use what I've gained to give you a better life. We don't need to live like this anymore." His mother blinked back tears, overwhelmed by his words. Aladdin's heart swelled with love and gratitude for the woman who had raised him, who had sacrificed so much for him. Now, it was his turn to give back. "I've got enough to start over, Mother," Aladdin said, reaching into his satchel and pulling out a small pouch of gold coins. He handed it to her with a smile. "This is just the beginning. We can move to a better home, start fresh, and live without fear." But as his mother gazed at the gold, something in her expression shifted. She hesitated, looking down at the pouch, then back at her son. "Aladdin, I've lived my whole life with nothing but love for you. I don't need riches. I don't need gold. All I've ever wanted is to see you happy, to know that you've found your place in the world." Aladdin's heart ached at her words. He had always known that his mother's greatest treasure was not wealth, but her love for him. She had never once complained about their struggles. She had always put him first, even when their lives seemed impossible. But Aladdin knew that he couldn't simply return to their old life, not after what he had experienced. "I understand, Mother," he said softly. "But I can't just live the way we've always lived. We deserve more, both of us. I want to show you that there's more to life than this." His mother reached out and cupped his face with both hands, her touch gentle but firm. "I believe in you, Aladdin," she said. "I believe you'll find your way. But remember, no amount of wealth or magic can replace the love we share. If you find your way to happiness, that is enough for me." Tears welled up in Aladdin's eyes as he embraced his mother again. She was right. No amount of riches or power could ever replace the bond they shared. But with his wisdom and newfound power, he could offer her a life of comfort, security, and happiness, things she had never known. As Aladdin sat with his mother, discussing the possibilities of their new life, he realized that this was just the beginning of a much greater journey. The power of the jinn had given him more than just magic. It had given him the tools to change his life and the lives of those he loved. But the path forward would not be without its challenges. The world beyond his village was vast and filled with dangers, and Aladdin knew that his journey was far from over. But for the first time, Aladdin felt truly ready. He had the wisdom to navigate the obstacles ahead, and the love of his mother to guide him. Together, they would face whatever challenges came their way, and Aladdin knew that, with his heart in the right place, he would find a way to fulfill his destiny. The days that followed Aladdin's return to the village were filled with hope and excitement. He had already made significant changes for his mother, using the wealth and wisdom he had gained to ensure that their lives would be better. The small home they had once shared was replaced with a larger, more comfortable house on the outskirts of the village, one that would provide a life of security and peace for both of them. Aladdin's heart swelled with pride and gratitude as he saw the joy and comfort he had been able to bring to his mother. His life had taken a dramatic turn since the day he had met the mysterious sorcerer, and he now felt a deep sense of purpose in his heart. But even as Aladdin began to settle into this new life, a dark shadow loomed over him, one that he had not anticipated. The village, though peaceful, was not without its challenges. Aladdin was not the only one to possess knowledge of the magical world, and there were others who sought the power that the jinn's lamp had granted him. Among these people was a man of great ambition and ruthlessness, a former advisor to the Sultan of a neighboring kingdom. This man, known as Jafar, had long desired to rule over not just his own kingdom but the lands beyond it. He had heard whispers of a powerful artifact that could grant unimaginable power, the very lamp that had been awakened by Aladdin. Jafar had once been a trusted advisor, but his insatiable thirst for power had led to his downfall. Exiled from his homeland after his machinations were exposed, Jafar had spent years searching for a way to reclaim his power. His obsession with the magical lamp became all-consuming, and he spent his days poring over ancient texts and consulting dark forces in his pursuit of the lamp's power. It was through these dark dealings that he learned of Aladdin, the young boy who had been granted 3 wishes by the jinn. It wasn't long before Jafar's ambition led him to plot against Aladdin, believing that the young man was a threat to his own designs on the throne. Jafar's path soon crossed with that of Aladdin. One evening, as Aladdin sat with his mother in their new home, a knock came at the door. It was a cold, unsettling knock, one that sent a shiver down Aladdin's spine. He opened the door to find a figure standing in the shadows, cloaked in a dark robe. The man's eyes gleamed with an unnatural intensity, and his presence immediately put Aladdin on edge. "I've heard of your rise, young Aladdin," the man said in a low, menacing voice. "You've found the jinn's lamp, and with it, you've made yourself powerful. But there are others who seek that power, and I am one of them." Aladdin felt a wave of unease wash over him. This man was no ordinary visitor. There was something in his words, in his demeanor, that suggested he was not here for a friendly conversation. "Who are you?" Aladdin asked, standing tall despite the growing sense of danger. He knew that this man posed a threat, and he was determined to protect what he had built. The man smiled darkly, stepping forward into the light. "I am Jafar, and I have come to claim what is rightfully mine." Aladdin's heart skipped a beat. The name sounded familiar, but he could not immediately place it. Jafar continued, "You see, I was once a powerful advisor. I served the Sultan of a great kingdom, but my ambitions led to my exile. For years, I have searched for a way to regain what I lost. And now, young Aladdin, it seems that I have found it. The lamp that you possess, the power of the jinn, it is the key to everything I desire. And I will have it." Aladdin's mind raced. He had heard rumors of a man named Jafar, though he did not know the full extent of his power or ambitions. What he did know was that Jafar was dangerous, and that he would stop at nothing to claim the lamp for himself. "I won't let you take it," Aladdin said firmly, stepping between Jafar and the doorway, his hands clenched into fists. "This lamp is mine, and it's not for you." Jafar's eyes flashed with anger, and for a moment, the air between them seemed to crackle with tension. The power that Aladdin had felt when he first encountered the jinn now surged within him, but he knew he had to be careful. The power of the lamp was not something to be used recklessly. "You fool," Jafar sneered. "You think you can protect it? You think you can stand in my way? You are nothing but a child who stumbled upon a treasure you don't even understand." With a flick of his wrist, Jafar's robe swirled around him, and a dark energy filled the room. Aladdin took a step back, his heart racing. He didn't know what kind of magic Jafar wielded, but he could feel the danger emanating from him like a storm about to break. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, Aladdin," Jafar continued. "The jinn's power is mine for the taking, and I will not let you stand in my way." In that moment, Aladdin realized the magnitude of the threat Jafar posed. He had to act quickly, or everything he had worked for would be destroyed. His thoughts turned to the jinn, and he knew that he could call upon its power to protect himself and his mother. But there was a part of him that hesitated. The jinn's magic was powerful, but it came with consequences. The last thing he wanted was to use the wishes recklessly and give Jafar the opportunity to gain control of it. "Get out," Aladdin said, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "You're not welcome here. If you want the lamp, you'll have to take it from me." Jaffar's face twisted in fury, but for the moment he held his ground. "Very well, Aladdin," he said coldly. "You may have your lamp for now, but this is far from over. The next time we meet, you won't be so lucky." With that, Jafar turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Aladdin standing in the doorway, heart pounding, his thoughts racing. The threat was real, and Aladdin knew that the battle for the lamp had only just begun. He had to be careful, for Jafar would not stop until he had the power he sought. As Aladdin stood in the doorway, looking out into the night, he realized that his journey was far from over. The road ahead was filled with danger, and the choices he made from this point forward would shape not just his fate, but the fate of everyone he loved. Aladdin stood in the doorway, watching as Jafar disappeared into the night. The wind carried the faint echo of the sorcerer's parting words, "The next time we meet, you won't be so lucky." The words were like a heavy weight pressing down on Aladdin's chest, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. He knew, deep down, that Jafar was not a man to be underestimated. The danger had come to his doorstep, and there was no turning back now. His thoughts raced as he closed the door behind him. His mother had already retired to bed, unaware of the conversation that had just transpired. Aladdin could hear her soft breathing from the other room, and for a brief moment he felt a pang of guilt. He had promised to make her life better, to protect her from harm, and yet now a powerful enemy was after him, after them. What had he gotten himself into? He had no idea who this Jafar truly was or what he was capable of, but it was clear that he would stop at nothing to claim the jinn's power. Aladdin had made his first wish for wisdom, and now he would need to use that wisdom in ways he never thought possible. Jafar was dangerous, and he would not hesitate to use force to get what he wanted. Aladdin had to be prepared, and the weight of that responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders. The magic of the jinn was a force like no other, an ancient power that could reshape the world. Aladdin had already experienced the awe-inspiring strength of the jinn's abilities, but now he realized that such power could easily be twisted for evil. If Jafar gained control of the lamp, the consequences would be dire. It was clear to Aladdin that he could no longer act alone. He needed allies, and he needed a plan. Aladdin's first instinct was to seek the jinn's guidance. The powerful being had already granted him one wish, and he had made the decision not to use the remaining 2 wishes without careful consideration. Now, however, he knew that his time for hesitation was over. Jafar would be relentless in his pursuit of the lamp, and Aladdin could not afford to wait idly by. Taking a deep breath, Aladdin called upon the jinn. The air around him seemed to stir as a presence materialized before him, the familiar smoky form of the jinn emerging from the lamp. Aladdin had always felt a sense of awe when the jinn appeared, but now he felt an urgency that surpassed any previous encounter. "You called for me, Aladdin?" The jinn's voice echoed through the room, its tone both powerful and reassuring. "Yes," Aladdin said, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. "There is a man named Jafar. He's after the lamp, and he won't stop until he has it. I need your help to protect it. I can't do this alone." The jinn's eyes flickered with concern as it regarded Aladdin. "Jafar," it repeated, its voice growing colder. "I know of him. He is a man of great ambition, and he has spent years seeking the power of the lamp. He is dangerous, Aladdin. You must be cautious in how you use the wishes. The lamp's magic is not meant to be wielded recklessly. Aladdin nodded, understanding the jinn's warning. He had already learned that the power of the lamp was not to be taken lightly, but he also knew that his battle with Jafar required strength, strategy, and decisive action. I understand, Aladdin said, but I need your help. Jafar will stop at nothing to take the lamp, and I fear he has powers beyond anything I can face alone. He's not like anyone I've met before. The jinn studied Aladdin for a long moment before responding. I will help you, Aladdin. But remember, you must use the wishes wisely. You are the master of the lamp now, and the power that comes with it is both a blessing and a curse. You must not let greed or fear guide your choices. Aladdin's heart raced as the jinn spoke. The gravity of the situation had never been clearer. Jafar was a threat, and Aladdin's first wish, wisdom, was already proving to be crucial in guiding him. The second and third wishes were more powerful still, but Aladdin knew they had to be used with extreme caution. What can I do? Aladdin asked, the weight of the situation pressing on him. How can I stop Jafar? The jinn's expression softened, and its voice took on a tone of quiet guidance. You must be strategic, Aladdin. Jafar will not be easy to defeat. But he is not invincible. There are forces in this world that even he cannot control. You must learn to use your resources wisely, both the magic of the lamp and the strength within you. Aladdin took a deep breath, his resolve firming. He was no longer the naive boy who had stumbled upon the lamp. He was no longer the simple dreamer who had yearned for riches and adventure. Aladdin had grown, and his heart had matured along with his wisdom. He understood now that his journey was not just about obtaining wealth or power, it was about protecting what mattered most, and about using his strength for good. I will protect this lamp, Aladdin said, his voice unwavering. I'll do whatever it takes to stop Jafar. And I'll make sure that the power of the lamp is never misused. The jinn nodded, its eyes glowing with approval. Your heart is strong, Aladdin. But be warned, Jafar will not relent. He will come after you with all the forces at his command. You must be ready for whatever lies ahead. With that, the jinn's presence began to fade, its form dissipating into the air like smoke. Aladdin stood alone in the room, his mind racing with thoughts of what to do next. He had made his wish for wisdom, and now it was time to act. He could not afford to wait any longer. Jafar would be coming, and Aladdin knew that he needed a plan, one that would protect not only the lamp but also his mother, the only family he had left. As he turned to leave the room, a wave of determination washed over him. His path was clear now. He would not let Jafar take the lamp, and he would not let the darkness of greed and power consume the world he cherished. He would fight to protect his home, his mother, and the people he loved. The battle for the lamp had only just begun, and Aladdin was ready for whatever came next. Aladdin's heart pounded with anticipation as the days passed, each one bringing him closer to the inevitable confrontation with Jafar. The village, once peaceful and quiet, was now on edge. Aladdin's mother, still unaware of the full extent of the danger that loomed, noticed the change in her son. He had become more focused, more serious, no longer the boy who had left to seek a better life, but a man burdened with a great responsibility. Aladdin spent his days preparing. He sought advice from those who could help him, wise men, travelers, and scholars who had knowledge of ancient magic and the ways of the world. With the help of his allies, he crafted a plan to protect the lamp and outsmart Jafar, who was bound to return soon, more determined than ever to claim the power that the jinn could bestow. Each night, Aladdin would think deeply about his second and third wishes. He had made a vow to himself not to use them hastily, and he knew that the time would come when he would have to make a choice, whether to use them for himself or for the greater good. But what would be the right choice? Aladdin could feel the weight of his responsibility press down on him. The more he thought, the clearer his purpose became. His wishes were not just tools to be wielded for personal gain, they were a means to protect his world and everyone in it. As the sun began to set on the day of the final confrontation, Aladdin knew that this would be the moment that defined everything. Jafar would come for him, and the battle would be fierce. But Aladdin was no longer afraid. He had faced hardship, magic, and dark forces before, and with the wisdom granted to him by the jinn, he felt ready. It was time. That evening, just as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Jafar arrived. His presence was unmistakable, his dark robes fluttering in the breeze, his eyes burning with an insatiable desire. The power he craved was within his reach, and Aladdin knew that Jafar would stop at nothing to claim it. "I've come for what's mine, Aladdin," Jafar sneered, his voice cold and threatening. "I've waited too long, and I will not leave without it." Aladdin stood tall, his heart resolute. He had faced Jafar before, but this time would be different. He was no longer the naive boy who had stumbled upon the lamp, he was the master of his destiny. "I won't let you take it," Aladdin said firmly, his voice carrying a sense of finality. "This lamp doesn't belong to you." Jafar's eyes narrowed, and with a flick of his wrist, a burst of dark magic surged toward Aladdin. The air crackled with power, and for a moment, the world seemed to tremble. But Aladdin was ready. With the jinn's wisdom guiding him, he countered the dark magic with a shield of light, a protective barrier that formed around him in an instant. "You think you can stand against me?" Jafar laughed, his voice full of malice. "I am a master of magic. You cannot defeat me." But Aladdin was not just fighting with magic. He had learned that true strength came from within, the strength of his heart, the clarity of his mind, and the wisdom to make the right choices. As the battle raged on, Aladdin held his ground, knowing that he was not alone. The jinn's magic pulsed within him, ready to aid him when the time was right. "You are wrong, Jafar," Aladdin said calmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "It's not just about power. It's about using that power to do good, to protect the world around you." Jafar sneered, but Aladdin could see the doubt flickering in his eyes. The sorcerer had spent his entire life chasing power, but Aladdin knew that power alone was never enough. It was the heart, the choices, that truly defined a person. With a decisive motion, Aladdin raised his hand, summoning the jinn. "I wish," he began, his voice steady, "that Jafar be stripped of his power, that he may no longer harm others or seek domination." The jinn appeared in a flash of light, its form glowing with ancient power. Jafar tried to resist, but the jinn's magic was too great. In an instant, Jafar's dark energy was drained, his form crumbling into a powerless shadow. He fell to his knees, his eyes wide with disbelief. "No!" Jafar cried, his voice desperate. "This can't be happening." "It's over, Jafar," Aladdin said firmly. "Your thirst for power has cost you everything." The jinn, its form radiating with an aura of justice, lifted Jafar from the ground and bound him with a spell of containment. "You will no longer be a threat to this world," the jinn declared, its voice thunderous. "Your power has been taken from you, and you will be cast into a place where it can do no harm." With one final flash of light, Jafar was gone, his fate sealed. Aladdin watched as the jinn turned to him, its gaze filled with pride. "You have done well, Aladdin," the jinn said. "Your choices were wise. You protected the lamp and those you love. You have proven that wisdom is the greatest power of all." Aladdin breathed a sigh of relief, his heart swelling with gratitude. The battle was over, and he had emerged victorious, not through sheer force, but through the strength of his wisdom and the purity of his heart. He had kept his promise to protect his mother and his home. As the dust settled and the night grew calm, Aladdin stood in the silence, knowing that his journey was far from over. He still had one more wish to make, but now he knew exactly what it would be. He turned to the jinn, his heart filled with gratitude. "I wish," Aladdin began, "to set you free. You have served me well, and I believe it is time for you to live freely, as you once did." The jinn's eyes widened with surprise and admiration. "You would choose to free me, Aladdin?" "I would," Aladdin said, his voice filled with sincerity. "You've helped me become who I am, and now I want to give you the freedom you deserve." With a final flash of light, the jinn's form shimmered, and its power was released. The jinn smiled warmly at Aladdin, its form now free from the confines of the lamp. "Thank you, Aladdin," the jinn said, its voice filled with warmth. "You have shown me the true meaning of freedom. I will always remember you." With that, the jinn vanished into the night, its magic leaving a lasting mark on the world. Aladdin stood alone, feeling the weight of his choices lift from his shoulders. The battle was over, and he had made the right decisions. As he looked up at the stars, he knew that his life had only just begun. With wisdom, courage, and love in his heart, Aladdin was ready for whatever came next. That's the story of Aladdin and the magic lamp. Hopefully this story can help you sleep. Good night.